today's topic is R versus Python. We will also talk a bit about SAS and Matlab, which are proprietary software, but our discussion will be primarily focused on R versus Python. Two very popular data science programming languages, and it is often a question in the minds of many people which one to learn when they start learning any programming language for data science. So we will discuss more about these two languages, the similarities, the dissimilarities, and we'll also share our own experience of using these two languages. Okay, good to go.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think in market this is one of the hot topic actually in the data science market. Okay,
right.
Many people are a little confused which one to focus on because when you are directly coming from college, or even if you are using some other software like you mentioned earlier, SAS and Matlab. So many people trying to shift to this software which are open source, so they are also a little bit confused which one to actually prefer, which one start learning, because for them it is always starting from zero.
That's right.
It's a bit situation for everyone. So I think it's really a hot topic for science.
Yes. So we dive into the details. So let's dive into the details. Sure. Okay. So R and Python both are open source, right? Both are free. You can download without paying any money. Although for enterprise licenses, you do have to pay some money, right? But I think for individual licenses, you don't have to pay anything, right? I also feel that both are easy to learn, actually. Now, what is easy is a bit subjective. To me, I think very subjective. Like for some people, probably one language may be easier than the other. But I think all the high-level languages are easier to learn, and compared to languages like C and C++, R and Python both are easier. I think most people will say that. Right? If you want to add two numbers in C, you'll have to write some 6 to 7 lines of code. In Python and R, it is a one line of code, right?
Yes,
it's much easier that way, right? So both are easy to learn, and both are very popular languages among data scientists. When we started our career, right, 10 years back, SAS was the most used programming language by data scientists, our analytics professionals. SPSS was also quite popular. It was quite popular in many firms, many big firms. I don't think anyone is using SPSS. Well, there are some companies still using.
I was using SPSS modeler actually in my previous organization in SBI card, because it's very easy, because you don't have to write any code. It's a drag and drop kind of software.
Right.
So I used to create decision tree using SPSS modeler. But it's very slow, so if you have a huge data set, you will really struggle a bit.
I have also used SPSS. I have also used SPSS in some companies I work for. But I think in most firms, I think they're now migrating to other tools like Python.
Correct. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, but SAS is still quite used in many places, actually. I know many companies in London or in US, Middle Eastern countries as well, where SAS is still being used, especially by the big banks. They're still using.
Yes. I think in big banks, I think they are very reluctant to change their, software and legacy system.
Legacy systems.
I think yes, because generally you will see that the new age fintech companies are actually starting from. They don't have that legacy issue that they have to shift from that old software to new software. Right. So they are much faster to migrate to these things. But banks have a lot of I think restriction in they are also very slow. They don't want to try something which is just has been launched, right? They want to get it in the market, and before it comes to be some successful in the market, then only they want to try it.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. No, that's true. Actually, I've also experienced that. Change is a big thing in big organizations, and certainly in banks, which are highly regulated. Having said that, I have seen many banks, big banks in Europe, using Python or have started this initiative of popularizing Python among their data scientists. So I think that's also a good thing. And in non-banking firms, I think it is easier to change. In big organizations in elsewhere, I think this has started, and it's only going to get bigger. I think open source is going to be more popular compared to the proprietary like SAS and Matlab and SPSS. I think, but there are some advantages of those softwares also, and I will talk about that. I also have a slide on that. That what's the advantages of SAS, for example, compared to Python or R. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and there are many differences between Python and R. Okay, the quite a few actually. The most basic ones are Python is a general purpose programming language. Python was created by someone from Netherlands, by the way. Someone from Netherlands. He created it in 1989. But that time when he created it as a general purpose programming language. That means you use that language to write software. Okay. To develop website, to develop web applications, these things. Right? It wasn't really developed for data analytics, for data analysis, data handling, data engineering. Right? So that time, that was the purpose. Okay. And general purpose programming, because it can be used for many things, right? It can be used for data science, for web application, for mobile application development, game development, automation activities, and you name it, right? All the IT activities that you do in a given organization, you can use for most of the things, you can use Python, right? But that's not the case with R, right? R has a very different purpose when it was created. In 90s, I think in 1992 it was created in some university in New Zealand, if I'm not wrong. Okay, it was created for statistician. It was created by statisticians, right? So it was developed for statistical analysis and not intended for, let's say, web application development or a front end development. Although I know that many R users, which are very fan of R programming, they will argue that R can be used also for, let's say, website development. Right? People have developed website for that, but I think that's not the most nice thing about this language, R programming language, where you don't have to use that for mobile application development and web application development. Okay, so that's the most big difference between R and Python, and hence you see the usage is also becoming more versatile for in this case of Python, where in the case of R, even if you use it for data analysis, you have to use another language for your front end development, for your for other things, for example, right? You cannot use that for end to end development. So that's an issue with R. I've also faced that, where I built a model in R, but in order to create a front end, we did use R for front end development also. But that wasn't quite nice. Maybe we are not that good users of R front end development. So we took help of people who developed a front end in .NET, which is a Microsoft technology. So I think these are some of the main differences, but there are many other differences also, right? But for someone who is a beginner, right? She may be thinking that what is best for me, right? What is your opinion? Which language is better if somebody has to learn from scratch? And somebody is a beginner.
See, the thing is actually for us, who have started his career, let's say 10 years back, right?
Yeah.
So we have two types of problem. Okay, we are a beginner as well as we are a legacy problem. We have the legacy problem because we started with SAS. We learned everything SAS. Now we have to actually move to this open source language, because many of the companies are actually using these days these things.
Yeah.
And many of the new models which is being developed, right? They tend to be available in these open source softwares very easily as compared to proprietary software. They take a lot of time to develop libraries and models and build those things.
Yes.
So I think I think in my view it is advisable that when you are thinking of moving to data science domain, better to start with R or Python. Now, since we are dealing with the question whether to learn R or Python, I have learned both. Okay, so when I was in Target, I used to learn R because at that time Target had planned to migrate to R. Okay, so I learned R, but I didn't like the user interface of R. Okay, so I used to work with R Studio. At that time, I learned a lot of things, but when I but 3-4 years back, I started using Python. I found it much easier. Okay, so the coding and everything, there are still some issues, but I think the Python is much better in my view, and I would also advise that and given that the vast usage of Python, right? So even if you are going in a different vertical other than data science, this language can help you. If you understand the basic, just few libraries you will have to learn for the web development, few libraries for data scraping from web. So you can do anything. Just that you have to understand the basic. To learn those extra libraries which is required. If someone is coming from web development background in Python, you just have to learn NumPy and Pandas.
Exactly. So if you are already so if you are already familiar with some other programming languages, like for example Java or .NET, C, C++, any other languages, you will be more comfortable with Python compared to say R, because R could be a bit intimidating initially, right? So Python is much better in that way. And in many countries where when you do an undergrad, right, you start learning a programming language, you start with C program or even Fortran. Fortran and C are more complicated languages compared to Python, right? And if you have the knowledge of C or C++, I think it is much easier to start with Python. And R is not very programming friendly in a way, because it's my opinion. It's not a very general opinion among people, but which is that it could be a bit intimidating for people who are new to programming. Okay, and that's why I also found this in a forum where people say that R tends to have a steeper learning curve. That means the initial learning curve is very steep. You could struggle with the syntax and the output debugging is an issue there. But once you understand how it works, I think it is then quite easy. So initial days you will struggle with R more than Python, and also because Python is used in more places nowadays than R. I think it is so. To me also, you should learn Python unless there is a reason for R. I think Python is a preferred language compared to R in many places. And as a beginner, you should learn Python.
Yeah, so just wanted to bring one, I think, the case when I was using R to develop support vector machine. Okay, and we were trying to develop an income estimation model using R because the SBR was not very good with SAS. Okay, so I started searching for a good article how we can use it, and some content on YouTube, and it was so difficult to find the exact thing which I was looking for, right? How to set C value and all those things, right? The cost function and the performance was a huge problem. It was very slow. I mean, I was not working with a huge data set, but it was taking a lot of time to basically model it and give me the output. It used to take a lot of time, and it was really frustrating. So when
not good with the data, actually R is not good with data.
And when I have to do the same thing in Python now, I find that it's very faster, as compared to R. So even from the practical purposes, when you are doing with the working with the huge data set, working with the model, it's I think much better to work with
Python. I totally agree. I totally agree.
Community support is also huge for Python.
Community support is huge actually on Stack Overflow or elsewhere. Right?
Anything. Yes, absolutely.
You can get more help on Python. compared to say R, because I think the user base is not that huge for R, and hence the
And I
community
think
support is
last couple of years, the usage of Python has increased like
increase a lot.
yes, exponentially. You'll see
Yeah.
the usage of Python is maybe at the number one as compared to
Yeah,
other
it has
programs.
increased exponentially.
Yeah.
We will see a graph actually in the next slide where there was a survey on the popularity of programming languages. I think our Python is a winner there, second most programming language there, and R is I think at 12th rank, something like that. We'll see that slide. Okay, but there are more differences. For example, Python can handle massive data. R is not that good with it. You have already discussed that. You mentioned about your own experience.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And Python is also better for more advanced model, deep learning models, AI models. Many of these libraries are pretty new actually. Even algorithms, some of the algorithms are quite new. You do not have many many of these packages for R actually, or not as well developed as the packages in Python. So from that point of view, I think Python is a winner, right? Having said that, I think R is a winner when it comes to statistical analysis, because for a lot of the scientific research, right, you need very highly theoretical sort of statistical model development. And for many of these theoretical models, you may not find a Python package. And for that, R is better. So if you are a data scientist, let's say you are working in geographical research or like GIS, geographical or geospatial sort of data analysis, or you are working in more scientific research, such as some advanced physics research, advanced medical science research, even pharmaceutical research. For example, in control trial, those statistical trials in pharmaceutical companies, there you will use some of these algorithms, uh, which for which you can find packages in R, but not in Python. So in those areas, R is a winner, in my view.
Correct.
One other difference is that, like, if we want to do non-statistical tasks like web scraping or running workflow, those things, very or natural language processing, those things, I think Python is any day better, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I think but I think in current times, maybe I think after this Chat GPT instance, what I'm seeing that there is a lot of talk about this NLPs, right?
Yeah.
And AI. So even from the job market point of view, you are going to see huge demand of AI, guys, and especially those who are trained in deep learning and the NLP. So it becomes your preferred language to learn Python, because these libraries are actually there in Python only. So if you have to work with those models, you'll have to learn Python. You'll have to learn the usage of those libraries, like TensorFlow, PyCaret, and everything.
Yeah, agree. This is what I was talking about. There was survey where people were asked this question: which language we use, and the most popular language still is C, and the second popular is Python. So this survey was in 2021.
Can you put a little bit of zoom, because the numbers are not clearly visible. Zoom it a little bit. Little bit to zoom it.
Okay.
Yes. Much
better.
Much better. Yes, I can see. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So C is at the top.
Yeah. But see the percentage addition and decrease in C's users and Python, right? So
more and more people now using Python.
Yes, in a year or two, it might be the number one language.
Exactly.
The way
probably already. Right. I do not know what is the status in 2023, but it's probably already the number one. And you see the R, right? R is at 13th. And again, the number of the change is negative. So,
yeah,
but expected though. Yeah. I was wondering about MATLAB actually. No, it's there at 15, but there's no SAS.
Yeah.
You know why MATLAB is there in the list and not SAS? Because MATLAB is very popular among engineers. People like civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, they use MATLAB. Even in scientific research, such as biological research, physics, applied physics research. So academicians use MATLAB a lot. Whereas SAS is primarily for statisticians, econometricians, primarily for those people. Hence, the user base is significantly less compared to MATLAB. And there is no SPSS. Well, SPSS is barely a tool, right? I don't know what it is. Programming language. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll go to the next slide. Okay.
Yeah, but this information is really helpful for people to decide which language to learn, because looking at the usage and all, they will understand. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you need to get a job, right? You need to get a job, make a living out of it, right? So it's not like something is better than all. Because people take it very emotional sometimes. If you are an R user and say no, Python is better, they take it very personally, and they tend to defend that. I have discussed this with one of my former colleague who was a fan of R programming language, and he was like, okay, no, R can do everything that Python can do. So why is Python better than R? But the thing is that if you're a beginner, you don't want to waste your time, in this debate. You rather learn something which will help you to get a good job and earn a good living, right? And in that, right? So from that point of view, I think Python is any day better, right? In my personal view, although nothing wrong with learning both. If you can learn both, that's even better, I would say. But if you have to choose between these two,
I think, even if you think about our case, right, who have, all his career for 10 years worked only with SAS. Yeah. Now, if we have to be adamant that no, we are not going to learn a new language and we have to
that will be a problem.
Yes, it will be very foolish, because you will become redundant after 5 years. If you don't move now, yes, because all the
and you never know. You never know. Maybe there is another language in the future which will replace Python as the most popular data science language. You never know. Something might happen, right? And by the way, when I started my career back in 2008, Python wasn't at all that popular. It was Java. Java was and .NET. These two languages were very popular. Even for mathematical analysis, a lot of data science. It wasn't called data science back then. But we used to call a mathematical library in Java to perform this. Yeah. Right. SQL is another program, very popular language, but SQL is at a different league. We should not compare that with Python and R.
It's mainly focused around pulling data and summarizing data, right? You build the models of using SQL.
It was very popular back then when I started in 2008. It is still very popular. I don't think, so it goes without saying that you have to learn SQL regardless of, what happens, right?
SQL and Python is a deadly combination.
Yeah.
If you know both, then no one is stopping you from getting a job. I mean,
exactly.
You can get job. Yes.
Exactly. Now that we have talked about R and Python and we have made a comparison of that, maybe in another video we'll dive into more details, right? Because this is a bit at a high level, right? In another session, maybe we'll dive into details. We'll take some code and run which one is faster, right? I used to make that comparison 10 years back, actually, between Python and SAS. In the same, and also within SAS, for example, you have integrated matrix language, IML. So I would write the same thing with data statement, and I would write with IML and with Python. I would make a comparison, which one is faster. Okay, but you can actually measure the time. A particular piece of code text. SAS, MATLAB also both are important. So let's also spare some time here, right? And I would like to highlight that there are also some good things about this proprietary software. Okay, you need to pay some money, and sometimes it is for the better because the documentation is much better in for SAS and MATLAB compared to say Python. Right, because there's no incentive for people to document it well, right? And who likes documentation? But because SAS is paying people to do that, So, it's therefore is better. User support is also better. User support, because for R and Python, you have to go to internet and search. But sometimes it could be very frustrating, especially for beginners. It will be very frustrating to understand from the answers from Stack Overflow and other places, Reddit and all. But for SAS or any other proprietary softwares, you have user support given by SAS itself. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And that's actually very good in many places, because even if any something, if I run into some issues, you can register a ticket with SAS and they will solve it for you. They will provide you some support. There is also another good thing with SAS. For example, let's say you want to customize an algorithm, you can also do that. In Python and all of this, we can also do that. If you are a very pro programmer and you are very good in mathematics, you can implement any algorithm, right? It is not a big deal.
Correct.
But if you do not want to spend, or you do not have the expertise for that, you can ask SAS for that and they will do it for you. Obviously, you have to pay money, but that is available. So user support is also better in many cases, and in general also is better, I would say. But I think Python is also, or more for most of the open source programming languages, user support. Well, there is no user support as such because there is not a company as such, but because the communities are also becoming better, and with Chat GPT and all these search engines, I think, and also YouTube videos. I think, that is less of a problem. I think when we started 10 years back, there were not many YouTube videos on data science, right, on YouTube.
Correct. Yes.
And there were not many blogs even. Many of the blogs were mostly on programming, actually. Programming was very famous, always famous, but there were not many blogs on data science topics. But, things have gotten better, actually, in the last 10 years, so I think less of a problem. And SAS is still very popular in many big corporations, many big banks, right? So if you want to work there, it's good to know some SAS programming languages. I mean, some SAS. I mean, it's good to know a bit about data statement, ProcSQL, IML, SAS macro, right? That really helps, giving a comfort to the guy that, you know SAS and you can learn when you join. So SAS unfortunately is not free, but you can download the university version of the SAS from SAS. If you're a student, you can download the university version, the student version. But I think even otherwise also you have, let's say, 15 days of free trial, something like that. So you can familiarize yourself with SAS by taking help from the free version. Anything you like to add?
Yes, I think the bank part, right? You mentioned that most of the banks still working with SAS. What I have seen that even the big banks now have Python available. Okay, so the new employees who is coming, who knows how to use Python, I think these people are actually preferring to use Python instead of SAS. So you take my example. So in my companies, most of the people in my team are still using SAS, but I do almost 99% of my work in Python. Okay, because I know that the future is Python. So you have to either today or tomorrow to Python. So it's better to move today and take the advantage of first mover. Otherwise, you
first mover advantage. Exactly.
Yes. So you don't want to, be forced to move to Python. I don't want that situation to come, right? Otherwise, you will be learning it in compulsion. So we have to not learn it in compulsion. Yes.
Yeah.
Especially, I think. Yes, go on. So I was saying that in marketing and all, where they are dealing with the huge data set, even in the banks they are using Python. Okay, but I think in the credit risk, what I am seeing that people are still using SAS. But the thing is that for the new models, like the graded boosting and all, I think it's much easier to fit a model in Python as compared to SAS.
I agree.
And also when you have to run a lot of models in one go, like 15 model, and you want to compare the result, which model could perform better on your
Python
data
is
set.
better, yeah. Python
Very easy use libraries in Python. The same thing you cannot find in SAS, so it's very difficult. And I think to solve this problem, only many companies are nowadays having discussion with data robot kind of thing. Who provide software.
Automation
You have to just yes, automated software. They will create the model and everything. You just
we will have a separate session on that. We'll have a separate session on that automation of model development, right? So we will discuss all the tools available in the market and which tools can be used where. Okay.
Yes.
Right. We'd like to also hear from our viewers what language, what's their view actually about this topic, and which language they're using in the work. So please comment in the comment section. Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks, Vishnu. Thanks for joining in.
Thanks, Pani.